a seat, let the daylight wane. Got stories in the air and some dreams to gain. The coffee's warm, the swing's in tune. We'll laugh a little louder beneath the silver moon. Christmas lights are glowing and there's eggnog near. Voices fill the night with a joyful cheer. Oh, the snow's still falling, but the fire's aglow. Come on up, come on in, let the season show.
Good evening, everyone. Come on up.
Patchwork quilts and the piney scent, candied yams and the hours well spent. The kids are chasing shadows.
Hey, Carol, welcome. I am feeling a little better. Thank you.
Keeps the cold at bay.
I am chill.
Pass the cider, pass the bread, tell the tales we've always said. Christmas lights are glowing and there's eggnog near. Voices fill the night with a joyful cheer.
We'll get to your questions in just a second. Carrie, thanks so much for joining. Everyone hear the music okay? Hopefully I'm not just bopping my head to nothing.
Silver bells in the distance ring and the stars above do their shimmering thing. We're bound together like holly and pine in the heart of winter. Our spirits align.
Mila, welcome. Hi, Carrie. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Off on the Porch. Still cold outside. I think we might be off the porch here, at least for a while, unless we get back to doing a daytime. So please excuse me. This is going to be a short one tonight. I am getting over what I refer to as the worst cold in the history of the world. Right, honey?
The worst.
Yep. Because I'm a good sick person, and I don't amplify anything when I'm sick.
Never.
No, not at all. Yeah, I'm sure it's much colder there, Lady Jude, wherever you are. I know we are still blessed. Kayla, welcome so much. But thanks so much for joining us. I'm Eric the Undertaker. I am a licensed mortician, have been for over 27 years. On TikTok here, I go by Eric the Undertaker, and I come and share different experiences that I've had with families I've served, deceased I've dealt with, and just the life lessons that they've taught me. Several times a week, except this week it's only been one because I've been sick. We come on oftentimes with my wife and some incredible moderators that join us all over the United States, and we answer your questions regarding death, dying, your own grief journey, or just anything that you've ever wanted to ask a mortician. So we're going to get right into those, right, hon?
We sure are.
All right.
First question. Do I have a mic?
Oh, you do. Sorry.
First question of the night. How do you keep the mouth closed?
Okay, so oftentimes that's what we refer to as setting the features, so closing the mouth and the eyes. The mouth, generally, we either have to suture or wire the jaw shut. And once we do that, then we'll get a fairly normal closure with the lips. Sometimes the lips still come apart. We have to use various creams called Stay Lip, or sometimes even a little bit of mortuary glue.
Gone Fishing has a question.
Sure.
In the event of a world apocalypse, what would you do? And how long do you think you could live?
Wow. That's a great question. And I don't know if I have any greater knowledge of survival than anybody else. But I do think that being as far away from urban areas would probably be the most important part. Getting to more a rural area, that you would probably be a little bit safer, I guess. What do you think, hon?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. We moved kind of to the country 5 years ago, not because we were escaping the apocalypse, but partly because we were escaping COVID and just the chaos and craziness that went along with that.
Felt like it.
Yep. And we wanted kids to be able to have some room to roam, and now they do that. So.
Alicia wants to know, have you ever experienced anything paranormal?
Not really, Alicia, paranormal that I refer to as paranormal. Now, I've experienced what I call miracles, and whether or not the deceased or spirit or soul is involved in the interaction of those miracles, I don't know. But I do think they're sent from heaven or God, personally, in my faith. And so I've witnessed things that during either services or before or after services, or even during my own personal loss, that I refer to as miracles. And my Porch Talk series, if you don't follow me already, I would encourage you to do so and go to my Porch Talk. I now have two playlists, Porch Talk and then Porch Talk Kids. And the Porch Talk has several of those miracles. There's the ornament, there's there is the newspaper, there is gosh, I'm drawing a blank right now of all the yeah. But there's several of them there that are on the Porch Talk series that you can refer to. And every now and then I'll retell one of those stories on one of the lives as well. So
Amy Jo says, today is 31 years since my dad passed away. He was only 57, my age now.
wow, Amy, isn't that a surreal feeling to reach the age where you soon are going to be you are going to be here on earth longer than your dad was. And time is, in going through a grief process, I think time is one of the most significant things that kind of affect us on that, because of course our loved one's time stopped short, but life just continues on. And I even think of that often with our son that passed away 5 years ago. And of course, how he will never age, but even his younger siblings now, he has siblings that, are older than he was when he passed away. And you just never think of that in the kind of your ideal timeline with life. So I can imagine even when you have a parent that passes away so many years ago, and then you reach that milestone. Wow, what amazing realization that must be. And I can see it being both sad and also having a level of gratefulness, because you've reached that level of life.
Rennie asks, can you leave a smile on a corpse?
So, Rennie, sometimes, our ultimate goal is to make sure that they have a pleasant, comfortable look to them. Too much of a smile is going to sometimes look a little creepy and cause, too much level of conversation among people that come and visit. But we do want to make them, look, pleasant. Now, sometimes people come in just kind of with a natural smile on their face, and there's really nothing that we can do to alter that and change it. And that's just the way the life decided for them to end.
Mal says, my son passed at 18 months old due to a bone marrow transplant complication, leaving him in the hospital. I don't know if there's a part two. Oh, here it is. Hospital was the hardest thing I've ever done. Can you tell me what happened next to him?
Next to him. So my son passed at 18 months old due to a bone marrow transplant complication. Hardest thing I've ever done. Can you tell me what happened next to him? As far as how he was cared for, possibly? At the hospital, I'm so sorry for your loss. At the hospital, he was probably taken to their care facility, often called a morgue facility. Of course, refrigeration needs to be utilized to care for somebody until they are authorized to release to a funeral home, which you probably chose. And then that just depended on how you directed the funeral home, whether or not they wanted, you were going to do the embalming for an open casket, or he was just going to be cared for under refrigeration for burial or cremation after. So
She said, like what happened after we left?
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you what, hospitals are so caring, even with the deceased. They generally completely bathe them. For a younger person, 18 months old, they may have needed to change them, but make sure that they were clean, and then transfer them, over to a specialized cot that would take them to the morgue facility. So.
Lady Judy, 57. The same with my dad, 67, and two brothers, 30 and 33.
Yeah, wow. And you know how time just catches up, and it's absolutely surreal, because I think it's just another reminder of how much life just continues on, even though somebody we've lost. I mean, life just has to go on, even even when people are in the middle of it and they're being supported, by different community and extended family and everything, and then the death pretty much. I mean, time stands still for that family. But me personally, one of the realizations, not that I ever blamed anybody, but it was just a huge realization to me of how everyone else's life just kept going on. And it has to, right? Life must go on, even eventually for us as well. But just to watch the rest of the world continue on when our world is just completely, fallen apart and shattered on the floor, really. So, yeah, it's a huge reminder of that. So, well, I haven't even reminded people. I think people are doing a great job already. But as you do come in, if you could go ahead and tap on the screen. It's been a few days since we've been on. I'm out of practice, honey.
Yeah.
So tap on the screen. That's going to notify notify TikTok that we are live. Not on the porch tonight, but we're off the porch enjoying the warmth. And we appreciate you all being here. Also, if you wouldn't mind dropping in the comments where you're checking in from tonight, it's kind of our roll call for our Porchketeers, just to see where everybody is here. Welcome, Your Faith Thickums. Thanks so much for joining. And then we'll continue with the questions as you also put in, where you're checking in from. NYC, Georgia. Hello from Florida and Connecticut, Ohio here, Louisville, Kentucky, Central Wisconsin, Reno, Nevada, Oklahoma, Massachusetts. My goodness, Virginia, South Dakota, Texas, Atlanta, Massachusetts. Welcome, 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 everyone. So we are well represented throughout the whole United States. I haven't seen anybody outside the United States. Thanks so much. For the double heart. That reminds me, if you do have a daily heart you want to drop in today, that helps keep us to get to know you as well. Automatically makes you part of our fan club. We have 2 levels of fan club. That's easy to join weekly. Costs barely almost nothing. And then we also have a subscription based. We do a subscriber lounge private live at least once a week now, where we come together. That's more grief focused, especially during the holidays. We've got some wonderful people that we bring together, and we just kind of talk openly for 30 minutes to an hour about our own grief journey. So, all right.
And we are in California for those of you who asked.
Oh, Micah, can you pin Micah's? Do you see Micah's question that came through? He's an incredible TikTok friend and a supporter from the very beginning. And he's also a wonderful creator.
Eric,
Hi, Micah.
Yeah. Want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
I shared before my family was in the funeral home industry. Thank you for all you do, Micah.
Yeah, it's an honor, Micah. And thanks so much for what you're doing. Micah has been on his own journey. And because of that, he is on a mission. Many incredible things that he does, but he's on a journey to promote prostate health with men right now, among many other things that he does. So you should definitely check him out as well. Just a wonderful, caring individual.
Julie has a question. Can you tell ones that suffer and who don't?
Oh, interesting question, Julie. You mean when they come in and whether their expression? Well, unfortunately, we can often tell if somebody's been cared for well or maybe neglected a little bit. And that's always sad, especially with the elderly. Sometimes it's facility based. Sometimes it's based on even the care that they are unfortunately getting at home or the lack thereof. And sometimes we can see on their face if they've been in a lot of pain. Sometimes we can see dementia on their face. It's just kind of a vacant look sometimes when they come in. So yes, we can see different. We can see kind of different, chapters of their story, so to speak, when they do come into our care.
January Joy says, my stepson passed of cancer at 35 years old. His funeral is on Wednesday.
Oh, January Joy. I am so sorry. Um, to lose a son, stepson, any family member at that young age, right in the prime of life. So many things just getting started, and then to love him throughout the battle of cancer. I'm sure it was devastating for this ultimately to be, the result. I hope you find a sense of peace, that he's at peace now. I hope you find a sense of gratitude for everything that you got to experience with him the last 35 years, because that truly was and is a gift, the greatest gift really that he leaves, and the influence that he's had on you. And our prayer is for this next week as you go into memorializing him and celebrating his life, that you not only have strength, but a sense of peace, and you come together as a family and community and just celebrate everything that he was to all of you.
Yvonne says, my 30-year-old son was killed 1.5 years ago. How was his autopsy already completed the next day?
Yeah, sometimes, Yvonne, and once again, I'm so sorry for your young loss. Sometimes the autopsy, especially, I don't know if you live in more of a urban or a rural area, but sometimes if for whatever the case, their caseload isn't that high, an autopsy can be done fairly quickly. And most agencies, even in more urban areas, do everything they can to expedite, because they realize, first of all, there's a family waiting to receive the remains to a funeral home so they can begin what they need to do in memorializing and celebrating that life. And then also, the sooner the autopsy's done, the sooner they can start to get some answers. And that's always very important to a family as well. So
Arnie says, my husband was cremated August 15th, and now the undertaker can't find him. Now what?
Oh boy. So my husband was cremated August 15th, and now the undertaker can't find, I'm assuming, his cremated remains. That's Arnie, that's really unfortunate. And my question is, why? Obviously, I'm sure you've asked. Was there a problem? Was he released to the wrong family? Was there an issue from the crematory back to the funeral home? Was there just something that was mislabeled? I honestly, in 27 years, I don't understand how that could happen. So I'm sure you're doing everything you can to ask those questions. If there's anything more specific you can tell me and you're not comfortable, asking me here, you can always direct message me or email me at erictheundertaker@gmail.com. Welcome, Cindy. Hi, Amy. Thanks so much for checking in from New Zealand. There we're venturing out of the United States. And thank you so much for the gifts. We've got Pop Fest. I guess they're balls.
You don't know what they are.
I don't know what they are. Yeah.
What's your goal?
But we appreciate them. I think I set a goal of 1,500, trying to get back into the saddle. My voice is feeling okay. Does it feel a little
okay?
froggy?
No coughing yet.
No coughing yet. So
Cranky Cadaver has a question.
Cranky Cadaver. Okay.
What are your thoughts on American Academy McAllister Institute?
So what is that, Cranky? I'm not completely confident of what that is. And you may tell me something, what it is, and then I may remember. Let me just see.
While you're looking, Great Lakes Kennel says, you look like Jason Bateman.
Oh, I've never gotten that, honey. Have we ever gotten that?
Are you related?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. I've actually gotten that since I was 12 years old. So that's it's a common misconception, I guess. No, we're not related at all.
They do look a lot alike, though.
But I will point out, and now that I found out he's actually many months older than me, but he is older than me. So yeah.
Are you looking up something?
I was just looking up to see the McAllister Institute Substance Abuse Treatment and Education. I'm still not familiar with it, so please educate me if you can.
I'm looking to see if Cranky Cadaver said anything. If nothing's coming through on my
That's
end
okay.
yet.
All right. I'm sure something will come out.
Okay. Carol says, oh, it didn't pin. But I believe, gosh, I had it ready so long ago. I think it was caring for children versus adults, if there's a big difference in how you care for them.
Well, we care for everybody the same way, the same amount of care, love, and dignity as far as the deceased go, and certainly the families we care for in the same way as well. Um, but I'm not going to lie. I mean, children, it weighs on us heavier than anything else. Not only children that have died, but then children that are having to grieve the loss of a young parent if they're very young as well. That's almost just as difficult for us. So, I'll say this. I mean, if when I have a child that's died and I have the honor of caring for them at the mortuary, I always come home that night and hold my own kids even tighter. And just, incredibly grateful for the gifts that they are. And we keep the parents that are in loss at that time in prayer. So everybody's treated the same, but children do weigh on us heavier.
Alicia says, I got accepted into graduate school and ironically starting school on my dad's death anniversary.
Isn't that interesting how that happens sometimes, Alicia? And what an incredible way to honor your dad. And I'm sure he would be so incredibly proud of you. And I'm sure the influence he had on you is, part of the reason you are successful and you're getting ready to continue your education like that. So thanks so much for sharing that. I think that's absolutely amazing and a gift. I think that's one of those gifts sent directly from heaven.
Soul Pretty says, I believe my father's death is being covered up by the hospital. No note or all from the morgue or death rep. There's the coughing. You okay, sweetie?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I believe my father's death is being covered up by the hospital. No note or all from the morgue or death rep.
I believe my father's death is being covered up by the hospital. No note or
at all from the morgue or the death rep, like representative maybe.
So I'm not sure what that means and why they would have a reason to cover up. Was there some sort of neglect or some sort of malpractice that took place at the hospital? And I don't know. I'm not familiar with that type of system where there would be a note from the morgue. Generally, the cause of death is going to come from the attending physician or the hospitalist if the person was in the hospital, or a specialist like an oncologist, cardiologist, something like that. So I would need a little bit more explanation.
Okay.
For that.
Julie says, what are your thoughts, cremation versus burial?
Julie, I think it's very personal. And I think both are, for the right families, they're the right choices. I'll tell you that my choice is cremation, and that's after a traditional service, because cremation doesn't necessarily mean you don't get to have a traditional service. Traditional meaning casketed service, so open casket, maybe go into church, and then cremation after. But I think it's an incredibly personal choice, and oftentimes families come in and they want to know what the difference, and they're struggling, and I'll tell them, and I'll tell you this as well. There really is no difference with the ultimate result. Both are going to get to a natural state as we were intended. That's skeletal remains. Cremation takes 2 to 3 hours to get to that. And then the skeletal remains are processed down into what we refer to as ashes or cremated remains. Burial is going to take months to years to get to that same state. So I do share that with families, but ultimately it truly is to each their own.
Caitlin says, what's a common misconception from the public about being a mortician?
What do you think, honey?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
I don't know about I think that maybe that we really are fascinated by the dead. Mm-hmm. And it's really not about that. I mean, there's some in my profession that want to specialize in caring for the dead, and there's nothing wrong with that, and they're incredibly talented professionals. But really what drives us to this industry is caring for those that are left after somebody dies, caring for the families. Me personally, now we're owner operators, so I do everything. I'm a licensed embalmer, licensed funeral director, but really less than 15% of my time is actually dealt with the dead. And I think that's a misconception. They think that all we're doing is dealing, with the deceased. And that's 15% of my time. If I was just the only person there on a daily basis and I was doing everything, it would be only 15% of my time was actually dealt with the body.
Brooke, unfortunately, is dying. You make me feel so at peace with dying. At 36, I've been so scared of leaving my kids and husband.
Brooke, I think you may have been on.
I think
you
so.
may have been on before, and I've prayed for you in your journey, and I am so incredibly grateful you're finding any ounce of peace in just joining us. I can't imagine. None of us really can imagine the journey that you're going through, and the concern that you might have for your own family, but the fact that you're getting to a place that you have, peace, ultimately, that you may no longer be with them as you are now. I hope you see that you'll be with them in a very different way then. And everything that you've done, every ounce of love, every ounce of care, every ounce of nourishment, every ounce of raising them up is forever going to be with them. That family is your legacy, Brooke, and no one's ever going to take that away. No one will ever replace that. Peace be with you, friend.
Haunted Skeleton says, how or where can I be part of the field when I've got OCD? I want to fit in. I'm very passionate.
Well, I think being detail-oriented is... I have somebody raising her hand.
Pretty sure I have OCD.
Yeah, raising her hand. Well, I think I'm when it comes to my profession, we have to be very detail-oriented. I mean, we are undertakers. We are undertaking, everything that the family needs to do to have everything done from funeral, memorial service, for final disposition, the documents we are undertaking. We are taking that. So it's very important that everything is lined up in perfect order. I've never been late for a funeral. It's always been the right person at the funeral. Everybody walks in and everything just automatically happens. So the fact that you're OCD just tells me that you are detail oriented and you're going to be incredible in the profession. Now, there are people that are blessed with being amplified with that. And my wife being one of them. And, if one thing is out of place, or there's something wrong with,
I can't let it go.
even one of my videos or something like that, she'll point it out to me. It's very difficult. Yeah. It's just, I get it. It's not something that you're comfortable letting go. So you're going to have to find some compromise in that. But for the most part, it's a great trait for this industry.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Oh, there's a follow-up. More germ OCD. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're going to have to listen. We treat everybody. We use universal precautions. So we make sure that we're safe with everybody that we care for. That's really built into it. So you're going to be perfectly safe when it comes to that. Now, you're going to come across more germs in funerals than the dead. People that are coming in and out from the public, sometimes hundreds. That's where you probably will have more of a problem. The dead, you're perfectly safe with, friend.
B Dragon says, what do you do with unclaimed ashes? I don't believe my stepfather ever picked up my mother's.
Well, it depends on the state and the regulations, depends on the funeral home's policy. Our cremation authorization actually says that families have 90 days to pick them up, and then we are authorized to scatter the cremated remains at that point. We've actually never done that. We put them into a community niche for unclaimed cremated remains. So if the family ever does come back, but the community niche is at a cemetery, we have to pay to do it, and we had to purchase that, so we would have that as an option. We weren't required to do it. But so it's going to depend on the state you're in. But if you have questions about it, I would call the funeral home that took care of them and ask and they should be able to tell you if somebody picked them up, when they picked them up, or if they possibly still have them, or if they had to dispose in a dignified manner on behalf of the family.
Coffee and Rain says, what are some death situations that make it more difficult to prepare a body for viewing?
Well, outside of trauma, which actually can be some of the simplest resolves for us as far as restoration goes, probably the most difficult is deceased that weren't found right away. So they have advanced stages of decomposition. When we're dealing with what we refer to as tissue gas, different kind of mortises, liver mortis. Sometimes there's staining, postmortem staining because of it, marbling, discoloration, or even to the point that they're almost not recognizable anymore and we can't do anything about it. So I would say the most difficult is advanced stages of decomposition and whether or not we can reverse that at all. Mimi, welcome. Good evening. Welcome.
What is the most
And
unusual?
Margaret Ann.
What is the most unusual or challenging thing that you have experienced in your career?
Well, excuse me. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm like 70% there. Honestly, Greasy Walrus. The most challenging thing I've ever dealt with in my career was when our son died 5 years ago. And because there were several months after that, professionally, that I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue doing what I did, because everything reminded me of him and what I went through. Ultimately, it made me stronger and it made me a better professional, but there were months that I didn't know if that was going to be the case. And quite honestly, it could have gone either way. But so it's interesting. The most difficult thing I've ever dealt with professionally was personally when I had my own personal loss.
Julie asked what he passed from.
So our son had epilepsy, and he had what they referred to as a sudden epileptic death, which my understanding is that it's just that. It's immediate. And even if he had had that seizure in the emergency room, they wouldn't most likely have been able to save him. So,
What would you recommend for someone who wants to be buried on their own property?
So I wonder if you're from Alaska. That's in your title, your name. But if it's going to depend on the state, and I wonder if maybe Alaska would be. Greta, welcome. Good to see you here. Greta. Alaska may be a little bit more, since there's some more rural areas. They may be more apt to allow it. Many states aren't going to allow it without actually filing for permits to create a cemetery on your property. What I will say this, though, is most states will allow cremated remains to be scattered over private property. So that's one way, and essentially you could bury them as well if the person was cremated first. But majority of the states aren't going to allow casketed burial on your property. I'm told there are some, but I'm sure there's a process to go through. So thanks so much for the daily heart me's and continuing tapping on that screen. That just notifies TikTok that we are live tonight. Unscheduled. We're just trying to work the kinks out of my voice after being sick for most of the week. So,
If I die in a hospital, where do they take me if I have no prior plans?
well, if you have family, then that's one of the questions they're going to ask when you're in the hospital is, do you have a funeral home selected? Especially if it's a situation that it's an imminent situation. You're seriously ill in palliative care or maybe ICU or something like that. If, most full service hospitals are going to have morgue facilities. So at least temporarily, they can transfer you to their morgue facilities. Some hospitals contract with a funeral home to use as their offsite storage. And they may do that if they don't immediately have a funeral home listed. But they're going to reach out to the next of kin if something hasn't been set up and ask them where the remains are going to be cared for.
Patty asks, what happens to your body when you donate it? Is it frozen, embalmed?
So donation generally is what I think you're referring to is willed body programs, which is generally connected to a university that has a medical school with it. called a willed body curator program. They will administer that themselves. And generally, they will pick the remains up, bring them to their embalming lab because those remains are going to be embalmed as soon as possible. And that embalming is called anatomical embalming, different from what we do. It's similar, but the basic premises is the same, but it's kind of amplified. They use higher index, higher strength fluid, more of it. They're not concerned about the appearance. They're only concerned about preservation. And that preservation generally is going to be for 2 to 3 years while they are used for anatomical, academic, and research purposes, medical schools and other colleges. And then after that, generally they cremate on behalf of the family, return the ashes to the family, or scatter them on their behalf.
Sonia says, why do bodies need to be embalmed to travel to their home state?
So that's generally any human remains that is going to be transferred by common carriers, such as an airline, generally is going to be embalmed. If there's a religious reason, for instance, Orthodox Jews or a Muslim, and they don't want to be embalmed, we can use dry ice. We just have to disclose that to the airline as well. Now, if we're going out of the country, which is something we do a lot of, shipping out of the United States, then embalming is going to be required.
Great Lake says, what happens if the body is unidentifiable?
Yeah, so that's not going to be our concern. It's going to be the medical examiner or coroner that will, then they won't release the remains until that person is identified generally. And this day and age, it's, DNA primarily, but they can use fingerprints. They can use dental records also, which are kind of the old school ways. But generally, if there's DNA available, then that's going to be the main reason to identify the remains. Main way.
Are you going to be telling any ghost stories tonight?
I really don't have any ghost stories to tell. I've got associates, I've got staff members that have had some things happen. We even have a video at the mortuary of the staff member, as a surveillance camera that has an interesting story. And sometime I'm going to bring her in and maybe tell her that, or she can tell that story. But anything that's even approaches paranormal level for me was really was a very cool experience, almost a miracle experience. I've really never felt like a ghost approached me, tapped me on the shoulder, anything like that. 27 years, I've really, never felt that. But I've had some pretty incredible experiences though. And those are in my Porch Talk series. If you go to my playlist, if you don't follow me already, please do click that follow button. You have easy access to the Porch Talk series. There's Porch Talk, and now there's Porch Talk Kids, which I just started.
Bunny the doll said, should I go to school and take over my past grandfather's funeral home?
If it's something you want to do and you're passionate about doing it, and it's a good fit for you, and you are interested in living that lifestyle of pretty much 24 hours a day, every day of the year, but still finding a way to keep yourself healthy, both emotionally, mentally, then absolutely. But I would never force any of my kids to do it. It's not going to be something that, this is the family business, you have to do it. But if you have the opportunity and it's something you're interested in it, how incredible to continue that legacy. But I'm very passionate about the fact that people need to be passionate about it.
Serena said, my father was found 48 hours after passing. They made me wear masks to go inside. Why is that?
Was this the funeral home or at the medical examiner coroner? I wonder. I don't know, unless maybe he was in an environment that was hotter, higher temperature, and there was advanced stages of decomposition, and maybe it was just to help with the odor. There really shouldn't have been any danger for you to breathe in anything. So, Erica, welcome.
Why do they take so long to send bodies to Mexico?
Well, I'm curious, how long did it take for you? That's something we specialize in, and the length of the process really is about documentation. We have to get the documents documents procured. We have to take them to the Secretary of State to get them apostilled, which internationalizes them. Then we have to translate all the documents, then take them to the Mexican consulate. That takes about 14 days for us. So, and then we're ready, to send the loved one back home once the family's ready. So I don't know what you've experienced, but right now, and we're honored to help about 6 to 8 families a month get back home to Mexico. And right now it's taking about 14 days for us.
I have a family member that is struggling financially. Is there help in California to pay cost of the niche?
The niche for the cremated remains to go into. I'm not aware of anything when it comes to help with the cemetery cost. Sometimes if somebody is at an indigent level, the county or state will help pay for the cremation, but then the rest is going to kind of be on, it's kind of above and beyond what's absolutely necessary. So I'm not aware of any public assistance for that. Maybe your community's the best, by starting a GoFundMe or church or other organization you might be involved in, and just take your time. One of the advantages to cremation is you don't have to place the person in their final place of rest immediately. So,
Julia, if you're not on hospice, can you go straight to the funeral home?
generally not. So if you're not under hospice, and then we have a family calls and they say, my dad died. Even if he was expected to die, even if he was sick, but he wasn't under hospice care, we have to have the family call even if they call non-emergency EMS, have somebody come out and pronounce the death, clear it through the coroner. We're not authorized to send somebody out unless the person was under hospice care or they've been cleared by the coroner.
Great Lakes Kennel has another question. How many years of schooling does someone like you have to have?
So that's going to vary by state to state also. Some states require the equivalent of an associate or a bachelor's before going to mortuary science college. And then mortuary science college is generally a 2, some states a 3-year, 2 to 3 year program. And then there's generally a 1 to 2 year internship or apprenticeship after that.
Mr. Sky or Ms. Sky, can you please explain cremation process?
Yeah, so fire cremation, which is what I'm going to assume you're referring to, is with intense heat, 14 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Generally takes about 2 to 3 hours. And once the cremation is done, the cremation door opens, and what's left is skeletal remains. Everything else is consumed or returns to the air because we're made up of so much water. So those recognizable skeletal remains are then swept out of the cremation chamber very easily, and they are processed down to what is known as ashes, or what we refer to them as cremated remains. Sometimes it's a consistency somewhere between sand and kind of crushed seashells.
Serena did say that it was at his home before the coroner got there. I think when she had to put the masks on.
Yeah, Serena, I'm sorry, but that probably was an odor. Probably was an odor situation that they just was trying to make it a little more comfortable for you. And I'm so sorry. That didn't make the situation any better. So,
Jordan's mama wants to know, can DNA still be determined after cremation?
very, very difficult. It's not, 14 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit destroys most everything. And it's, I'm not complete. I see conflicting articles that in medical science may, catch up with it. But from what I know so far or currently, it's almost impossible to get DNA from cremated remains.
Sticky Joe, what's your experience with Catholic funerals? What happens?
Catholic funerals are some of the most beautiful funerals. And the Catholic faith, it's very sacramental, and there's such beauty in, the symbolism of the service. The service actually begins when we bring the casket, or even sometimes the urn, at the back of the church where we all enter. And here's an interesting fact. If if we are taking in a person that is, which the majority are, a lay person that normally goes to church, they always go in feet first. The casket always goes in feet first. Priest comes down, blesses the casket, puts a pall, which is a cloth covering over the casket, which symbolizes the clothing worn in baptism, and then we process in. If it's a deacon or a priest or bishop or some other religious order that we are burying, we go in head first. And the reason is it's based on where your station in the church is. So if you're a priest or deacon and you're normally facing up by the altar, facing the congregation, you go in head first, just the same way you would be. And if you're part of the laity and you're worshiping, you would go in feet first, facing that way. Always thought that was an interesting tradition of the Catholic faith. So that's one. There's many other traditions and symbolisms of the Catholic faith, but that's one of them that I always explain it to the pallbearers too. They get an interest out of it. So,
Sciencey Kristen says, are there any issues with cremation if you have plastic surgery implants?
no, they remain in. They're not removed, and I've really never seen any residual afterwards. So the only time they would have been removed is if there was an autopsy and for some reason they took them out then, but generally even then they don't do that. So thanks so much, Paul, for the Daily Heart Me and the Level Up Sparks. I appreciate that. And Tom, thank you so much. JVs, thanks so much for the Heart Me. Appreciate that. Go ahead and continue to tap on the screen as you come in. We do have a goal of fest balls tonight that we're trying to reach, 1,500. Those numbers, folks, the numbers up here really don't mean a lot to us, but what they do is they generate awareness of what we're trying to do. And the number that's important to us is the community we're trying to build here, a community of all of you coming in and onto our porch, whether it's off the porch or on the porch, and supporting one another. And we get to see that all the time. Not only do I see it, even my wonderful moderators that are in here, reaching out to people, but people that that have been supportive of us and found us long, or even new ones that have come in, and they immediately start to support one another on their own grief journey. That's really what's important to us as we build this community. And our next stage is to hit 55,000 of those followers. But the awareness that you provide, the rocket fuel that you provide in creating that awareness by gifting or tapping or the daily heart me's and everything like that, that's really what's important to us. And we are so grateful, and we are so grateful for all of that. So thank you so much for doing that.
Carrie asks, is it required for an autopsy if you pass at home?
Not necessarily. Generally speaking, Bo, I saw the cat.
You must be a long time follower here.
Must be a long time follower. If you're dropping in a cat, you're giving it to Allison.
But at least we know it was not cat allergies. You truly have a cold.
That's right, true, because I did pick cats and I thought that I was getting allergic the other day. But so if you die at home under hospice care, there's not going to be any need for an autopsy. If you die at home, unattended death, and they can't determine the cause of death based on medical history, deceased may very well be transferred to the coroner or medical examiner, and an autopsy may be done so they can determine that. So it just depends on the situation if they die at home. Serena, thank you so much.
Lynn wants to know, how are burials handled in the snow these days? Very curious.
Yeah, Lynn, we don't have to deal with that much, but I have many associates throughout the United States that have different situation, and I'm sorry. I just want to. Okay. I don't know if this chat was coming through directly. This is another TikTok friend that just had a loss in her family. And I don't know if she's on here. Stephanie, if you're in the room, if you could make yourself known just by putting something all in caps, and Allison will watch for you. You may have also just direct messaged me, but I don't know for sure. Sometimes it's So in the snow, it's not so much the snow they have difficulty, but where the ground freezes and freezes solid. Now, one level is they will have ground heaters that they'll place over the area that they're going to have to dig the grave and heat it up, for a day or two, and so they can dig it. But there's some areas in the United States and probably in the other parts of the world where it gets so cold that they just can't do burials for several months. And those remains either stay at the mortuary or sometimes the cemetery has kind of a holding crypt for those caskets until the ground thaws.
Kim395 says, I attended a funeral of a Black friend. There were 2 women in white standing at each end of the casket.
Thanks so much, Misfit Jamie. I attended a funeral of a Black friend. There were 2 women in white standing. Can you read the rest, honey?
At each end of the casket.
So a couple of things, and there's some wonderful traditions in the African American community, depending on what faith they were, because there's many different faiths as well. They could have been funeral directors, but more apt, they were probably what they refer to as sisters of the church, and they were just kind of standing there in honor of the deceased.
Bree says, I delayed cremation, trying full autopsy, caregiver neglect, emaciated, signs. How long can I wait?
Is this a current situation, Bree? Because if you're going, your best resolve would be to order a private autopsy, which is very expensive, but they should be able to do that just within a day or so after you order that.
Lauren wants to know thoughts on terramation as an option.
I am super excited about terramation. I'm not even going to say that's weird to say anymore because that's what I do. And I think terramation is a wonderful alternative to fire cremation. If you don't know, terramation is full body composting of the remains. Takes about 45 to 60 days. Remains get down to a natural state, not only of skeletal remains, but about 150 pounds of composted earth that the family can take as well. And then either bury or put into a garden or put into a memorial forest or something like that. So I think it's amazing. We are working hard to try to be able to offer it to our families once it is authorized in our state, which we're probably a year away from. So.
I don't see Stephanie yet.
Yeah, she may have just direct messaged me. So,
what was your most extreme request from a family?
Extreme requests. Well, that's better than what sometimes people say weird. And I don't think anything's weird or strange. Extreme request. We've had some situations that just, kind of prolonged the process, and some of it's out of the family's, control. But, we've had to care for deceased sometimes 9 months, 10 months before, final disposition, either burial or, for shipping them back home to another country or something like that. So that's generally one of the most unique requests, that we've gotten. I had a lady once, I haven't told this story, a lady once that was proud to be a nudist. And her request, it was her, not the family's request. Her request was that she be buried in the casket as a nudist. So she wore her birthday suit and she wanted a private visitation with family and invited family and friends. But that wish was fulfilled. So.
If you have titanium in your body, does it survive cremation?
Yeah, Leah, no, generally any metal is going to remain after cremation. It will be removed before the skeletal remains are processed down. So it's easily removed. Any metal's removed and then offered back to the family. Or if the family doesn't want it, it's donated to a state-regulated metal recycler.
A friend of mine, mom, is on life support in another country, and the hospital is saying that she needs blood.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry that your friend's having to navigate that, and you're there to support them.
Here's another one.
Yeah.
If you're on life support, do you need blood?
I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't think we would be eliminated from needing blood. There's lots of different, sometimes my understanding is the need for blood transfusion isn't sometimes because you have a lack of blood always. Often that's the case, but because something needs to be replaced that you're not getting in the current blood you have. So that very well could be it as well. So
Angela says, when my son passed, his skin looked so good. We didn't have to put makeup on him. Why was that?
So, Angela, we, especially for men, some embalming fluid naturally has it, and then we have additive dyes that we can add to the embalming fluid that is going to oftentimes bring a nice, natural pigmentation back to the skin and tissue from within. So, my guess would be that was done well with the embalmer that cared for him.
They're saying that death happens in threes. Is that true? Do you see that happen at all?
Well, we don't. I mean, not professionally. I don't see it generally happen. We watch celebrities sometimes, pass away in threes and different situations like that, which I don't think there's a lot of validity to it. I think it's just coincidence. Sometimes though we will have, people that die of a certain thing. We'll have several of them in a row, whether it be a certain cancer or whether it be addiction related, overdose. Unfortunately, we just had a situation where we had, 4 of those in house at one point. Excuse me, just a second. So, that's the type of things we see. I will say an interesting statistic we had a couple of years ago that we, the whole year, over 60% of everybody we cared for that year all had birthdays in August. That was kind of an odd statistic that we noticed. August kept flying in.
You okay, honey?
Yeah, I'm good.
Are you done with that one? Okay. I want a Viking-style funeral with a boat, a flaming arrow, and a pile of wood. Is that legal?
Yeah, not in the United States. How cool would that be, though? Fat Kid the Boss. How cool would that be to, put you on a boat, light a match, and send you out? I think that would be amazing. But I'm sorry we can't do that, at least legally. Thanks, Margaret Ann.
Sorry, I was trying to find one.
Scott, how do you, what is he?
I'm trying to find his question because it looks like, but I can't find a question from Scott.
Yeah, sometimes we miss the question because it gets filtered. TikTok will filter it. So maybe try to
He has a serious question, but it's not coming up. I've searched and searched for your name.
Okay.
And sometimes TikTok just
Shiny Penny, thanks so much. Serena,
prevents
thanks
us
so
from
much.
seeing it.
Nessa, thanks so much. Masher, thanks so much for the daily heart.
This one, I got a first internship at a funeral home and worked my first day last week. It was so fulfilling.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Welcome to the profession. I hope it continues to be that. Open your mind and heart to all that it has to experience so you can truly get a complete overall, the best experience possible. So welcome.
Miss Sky, if I choose to be cremated, can I be cremated in a plain wood casket?
Yeah, absolutely. You can be cremated in as a minimum of a cardboard box. Everybody has to be in some sort of container when they go to cremation. Many people do choose a casket though, because they're going to have a service first. Sometimes, even if they're not going to have a service, they want to be in something a little bit better than that. And we have specific cremation caskets for that.
Have you ever had a request to do a viewing in somebody's home due to their religion?
It's more cultural based than religion. And we have many cultures that want to do, vigils at their home, and we honor that. We do it quite frequently. Sometimes they're even overnight vigils, which is perfectly fine. I'm going to need to refill my hot water. So
Are you just going to leave them hanging?
yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
I'll be right back, folks.
I did find Scott's question and I will try pinning it, although it may not let me, but I will try, Scott. Did you answer that last one? The one about, do you do viewings in a home due to
Yep.
religion? Okay.
Yep.
I have Scott's question. I don't know if it's going to let me pin it, but let's try it.
Okay.
It's not letting me pin it. Do you, let me see if I can find it exactly because it just disappeared. Will my foreskin be washed before cremation?
We bathe. We make sure everybody is clean in a dignified manner before they're going to cremation, Scott, even if they're not going to be viewed. And if that means complete bathing, 9 times out of 10, we do that. Sometimes people will come in already clean if they died under hospice or in a hospital. They do that complete, washing then. But it's something we check for, and if it's necessary to do, we definitely do it.
Mooncat lost her best friend. She died on last Sunday. If I can find it, she said what she died from. I believe it was lupus. She was only 35. She had lupus and stomach cancer.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah, that's I don't know what it is, and we just had a lady before I got live that her husband called and reported her death, and she was only 36. Had cancer as well. So, and somebody else, several of you today in their mid 30s and 35, and that's just an incredibly rough time because it really is just kind of where life is getting. Adult life is fully kind of engaged, right? So I'm so sorry.
Mooncat also says the sad part was that she wanted to be cremated, but her family had her buried.
Well, I wish that she had set something up for herself and signed paperwork, because then they would have had to abide by that. But that's unfortunate. But I will also say that, ultimately it's going to be, I mean, the surviving family is really going to benefit from anything that's done. So if they need a place to go to, at least they'll have that now, if there's any consolation to it.
Nessa says, may I ask, what is the state of the body? What is the state if the body is viewed when it's just family?
Nessa, so do you mean if we recommend that it's just family only, or if if they just want to come in for a family ID viewing? Because oftentimes when we have that, like prior to cremation, the just immediate family wants to come in and view one last time. Oh, Steph, welcome in. Thanks so much. Laura, I see you in as well. Thanks for joining. So when we can do that without embalming, we can care for the individual under refrigeration and then just do topical disinfection and set the features and do, family only viewing that way, if that's what you're asking.
Why is the cost of a rental casket so expensive for viewing with following cremation?
Well, that's one of the reasons we don't have a rental casket. We choose not to use a rental casket. We use actual cremation caskets, which actually the person stays in. They go to the crematory in that, because I can offer those at a lesser cost than if I were to have a rental casket. Rental casket, the interior insert has to be replaced every single time. They're also kind of paying off the initial cost of that shell, the rental casket itself. So Johnny, it's, when you get down to the business side of it, that's one of the decisions I decided to make, is not to offer a rental, because it was going to be more expensive than being able to offer several different cremation caskets at the same cost or less, that the family would have more choice in, and the remains wouldn't have to be removed from. They would just go straight to the crematory in that.
Is it true that everyone has parasites in the body?
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, but what I will tell you is I've never witnessed any sign of parasites after death, with the exception of like maggots, but that's a post-mortem infestation. So I for some reason I get this question all the time. So I think that there's something out there on the internet that is amplifying it, and often when that's the case, it's heavily on the misinformation. It's not completely accurate. And I don't have anything on this side of life to support that it's true.
I have the ashes of my mom, my son, and 3 pets on my dresser. Am I weird?
No, blessed mama. Absolutely, you're not weird. And if you're currently gaining strength and comfort from that, then no problem. what I do encourage you to do is have a plan, whether it's a plan that you're going to fulfill, where they're going to go ultimately, or a plan for somebody else to be able to deal with them. Because here's my fear. If you ever watched my video called Closets or Earned in the Closets, many, many, many people have cremated remains at home that aren't even displayed. They're in a closet or they're in the garage and they get forgotten about. And oftentimes, my fear is that the reality is we as a society, no matter how much we are loved, I have to play the I'm a real person game here with TikTok. Hold on just a second. So no matter how much we're loved, we're about 2 generations away from being strangers. And if those cremated remains go to the next generation and then go to the next generation, well, they're really not going to mean much to them. And then what are they going to do with them? So I encourage you to formulate a plan, either that you're going to eventually follow through with, or written plan for somebody else to deal with it once you are gone.
How would you prepare the body for terramation?
My understanding is as natural as possible. I don't think that we can do embalming. I mean, I think you could probably eventually compost, but it would take much, much longer. So I think that just cared for under refrigeration until the terramation began.
I don't see a part 2 yet, but Tita is here on the porch. My friend that's Samoan had his parents wake at home overnight. Thought it was scary. I couldn't find a part 2.
Yeah, Tita, hi. I don't think that it's scary. And I've had, Sherry, welcome so much. Thanks for joining. So I can see how some people coming to it might be uncomfortable with it. But the families that choose it for a reason, because they're finding comfort in it. I've done it for the Samoan families. I've done it for the Hispanic families. And it just is a huge celebration of life and just kind of coming home one more time, symbolically.
I'm the last person in my family. How do I have my last wishes carried out?
Make those arrangements yourself and even prepay for those arrangements and make payments if you need to, but go into a funeral home, make those arrangements so everything's in place. You sign your own paperwork. And then you also need to have somebody that's going to kind of, follow that through with the funeral home, maybe a durable power of attorney for healthcare, an executor, executrix, conservator, something like that.
Nicole wants to know, why is it required to put a loved one in a container during cremation?
So I don't know if all states, Margaret Ann, thanks for joining back. I don't know if all states require it. I think majority do. Our state requires that everybody goes to the crematory in a separate container. That's out of dignity. That's out of another level of being able to easily identify the remains and just keep everybody separated. So it would also be very, very difficult to put somebody into the cremation chamber if they weren't in some sort of container. If they were just in a shroud or something, it would not be a very dignified placement into the cremation chamber, because it has to be preheated. It's not like a cold chamber that we can easily, crawl into and help, place somebody in there. It has to be preheated to a very high temperature before that person even goes into the cremation chamber.
If DNA is tough after cremation, why not pull a tooth and store it in the ashes for those purposes?
So I don't know what the reason would be for that. If the family requested that and wanted to bring a forensic dentist to come in and do that, there's also DNA samples that can be taken, obviously, from blood or other means if the family wishes, but they would have to make that decision prior to cremation because we can't reverse cremation.
C. Patriot lost a friend in high school to electrocution. It was a closed casket. I've always wondered why.
Oftentimes electrocution, well, it may have just been the family. That may have been their family tradition and may have been their choice to have closed casket. Oftentimes with somebody that's electrocuted, there's an exit for that energy. And sometimes that exit can cause incredible trauma. It can even be in the head or facial area. So almost like the exit wound of a gunshot. So it can cause significant trauma.
Can you tell me how long schooling is for this? You've gotten a couple suggestions on Vicks under your nose and different concoctions to drink.
I'm just going to go open a bottle of embalming fluid.
Oh,
Clear me right out.
that's not.
No, that's not good. It's not good, folks. Yeah, I'll tell you. G. Wyland just joined. Welcome. It's going to vary from state to state. This is a question, not a hard question for me to answer. It's just a question I answer several times a night. And I can't believe I haven't done a video on. I don't think I've done a video on this. So, but most states are going to require the equivalent of either 2 years or 4 years. So either associate's or a bachelor's degree before going to Mortuary Science College. Mortuary Science College is generally a 2 to 3 year program. And then there's 1 to 2 years of internship after that.
Tony has a question. Have you ever turned away a body?
No, I've never turned away a body. Now, I've had possibly a family make a different decision to go to a different funeral home for a number of reasons. They may have had a very specific timeline that they needed to meet, Tony, and we may have already had services scheduled and we couldn't do that. Or there may have been a pricing issue. Generally, we are more cost effective than a lot of places, so that's generally not the case. But sometimes, there might be a pricing issue about a specialty item that they need or something like that they can get somewhere else. It's rare that it happens, but it's majority of the time is if there's a timing conflict. If I have family that's out of the country that can only be here next Thursday. We have to have the funeral Wednesday, and we already have 2 services scheduled for Wednesday. So I can't do that. That's generally the only time that we would have to, but we really don't turn them away. They make the choice to, go somewhere else.
Sonia G says, my dad was cremated. The machine broke midway. What did my dad have to go through?
Well, good question, Sonia. I don't know for sure if it was something that they could resolve very quickly or if they had to remove his remains in a dignified manner and take him to another cremation chamber. Some crematories have more than one cremation chamber, so it may have just been as simple as moving him to the next one, or he may have had to go to another facility. Honestly, that happens very rarely. Does it happen? And generally, there's at least something that does happen. Generally, there's a resolve that can at least temporarily fix it to finish the cremation care that they're currently doing. And then, they'll shut the crematory down and get it fixed, after that. So how are we doing on our,
looks
goals?
like you may have actually hit your goal.
We hit our goal. That's amazing. That's,
Just sort of happened. I didn't even notice.
Somebody's pulling up. Christmas presents?
Maybe so.
Maybe so.
Don't look.
Is it for me?
Don't look at your Amazon account. Can I ask a question?
You can. What question do you have, honey?
Well, not me. Chaos Sprinkles.
Oh, okay.
Why are the hands overlapping during the viewing? Why not laid down at the sides?
Chaos Sprinkles sounds like an Elf on the Shelf name.
It sure does.
It could be an Elf on the Shelf. Why are the hands overlapped during the viewing? Why not lay down the sides? It just looks more comfortable that way. There are situations sometimes if a guy's, larger, of average, over average size, sometimes they look more comfortable with them down at the side. But the preference is generally, on their abdominal area, not on their chest, on their abdominal area. And the preference is left over right. Do you know why?
Why?
Because if they're married and they're wearing their wedding ring, the wedding ring will be showing and not covered up.
Interesting.
Fun facts.
Fun facts. Jamie has a question. I asked to see where my dad was going to be cremated. Is this normal?
Yeah, sure, Jamie. And some families actually want to be present for that. They do a family, cremation witness, which is perfectly fine and normal and generally an option as well.
Letter, Queen Angie. Is terramation more cost effective, not needing a cremation casket? And can you also mention what terramation is? Because someone had a question of what's terramation.
So terramation, once again, is full body composting of the remains. It takes 45 to 60 days. I don't know if it's going to be any more cost effective because terramation takes longer, 45 to 60 days. It does currently cost more than fire cremation, which only takes 2 to 3 hours. So,
Has anyone ever chosen cremation but did not want the ashes?
yeah, I've had families that have chosen, they did not want the cremated remains. Then they have to contract with us to do something legally with them. So scatter them on their behalf someplace.
Does being around death in your work ever lead you to reflect on your own mortality?
All the time. And it has amplified my belief that I am going to be I choose to be incredibly grateful for everything and everyone in my life on a daily basis, because I'm reminded daily that there's no guarantee for tomorrow. I see that all the time. People that have many things planned, not only for the day, but for the months ahead or years ahead, about to live their life. And either their life ends without notice, as it often does, or one of their loved ones' life ends without notice. And so because of that, I choose to, it's not that I hang this over my head like I could die today. I don't walk out the door with that. What I do walk out the door with is I'm so grateful that I got to wake up with the people that, I fell asleep around and embraced. And if for some reason I don't come back to them or some of them aren't here, I'm still incredibly grateful for everything that I've gotten from them up until this point.
Has there ever been a heated argument over the deceased?
There was a proud mom of a mortician that just popped in. I saw that.
Oh, that was her account name?
Yeah. Well, no, she just said, I'm that mom, proud.
Oh.
Yeah. Has there ever been a heated argument? Oh, yeah. Over many, many times. And oftentimes, any issues that families are having, before the death is just going to get amplified after. And there's situations, and I have a Porch Talk video about one family specifically that I ultimately just had to go in and stop the fighting in the chapel by closing the casket and basically saying, I'll open it when you guys straighten up and fly right. And because that's not why we're here, is for you to come together and fight. You are here to honor your mother, and she would want you to do that. And I didn't mean to be disrespectful to them, but I wanted them to get the most out of it. And until they resolved that, they weren't going to be able to move forward. One of my goals is when they leave our care, when the funeral's over and they go on, which is really where the grief process begins. One of my goals is that we've set them up with as much hope for success as possible on that. And that they leave with a little bit sense of a peace of, better feeling than when they walked in the door originally. And if they're fighting, that's not going to happen. So anything that I can do to diminish that and just find some compromise with the family until that time, that's success for us. So,
Is cremation bad for the environment?
good question. Many people think so. I mean, it releases into the air. Now, there really isn't it's natural, and there's, much of us is water. But we are incredibly regulated, not only by Cemetery and Funeral Bureau, but also by air quality entities also. There's really very little, there should be no smoke going into the air. Sometimes you just see kind of a heat haze, but the efficiency should be set at a state that there really is very little smoke or odor that comes out. And if that's the case, then it really shouldn't be that bad for the environment.
Since you told us that hands are crossed left over right so that the wedding band can show, are wedding bands and jewelry removed before the casket is closed?
98% of the time, yes. And even if a family says, oh, we want it to stay with them, I'm going to discourage that. I'm going to say, well, let's think about that, because it's really not going to do your husband, wife any good. I understand the sentiment behind it, but would it mean something to somebody else that's going to continue? Maybe even, maybe even a 6-year-old granddaughter that's going to be married in 20 plus years, or somebody like that might you love that. And generally when I remind people of that, they agree. But there are still situations where like, nope, that was hers. It's going to remain hers. So, but most of the time it's removed.
I was given a necklace with my grandma's ashes in it. Are they really in there? It's sealed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very small amount. Thank you so much for the origami. It's a very small amount. Um, let me just clear this out. But the cremated remains are placed in there. So, Jean, thanks so much. Angelica, thanks so much. Oh, that was from our moderator, Susie. Thanks so much for the origami. Thanks so much, friend. I hope you're doing well.
Ashley Z is here.
Okay.
When my dad passed, his tongue was very swollen. Why?
I don't know what he died of, Ashley. There really shouldn't have been any. I mean, post-mortem wise, there should be no reason for it. So if there was something prior to him passing that caused his tongue to swell, I'm curious how you knew that. If you noticed it before he went to the funeral home, or was this after the funeral home that you noticed?
I found that mom 1982. Hey, I'm the proud daughter and granddaughter of a mortician.
That's amazing. Congratulations. No better profession in the world. I'm biased, but that's for the right people. And I trust that your family is that. So you should be very proud of that. So I'm glad you found her.
Rachel Rogers says, how long have you been a mortician and are you happy with it? Hubby is interested in becoming one.
Yeah, Rachel. And if he has any questions, he can always reach out to me directly. But I've been licensed over 27 years. I started my discernment period prior to that. I did a year of discernment, working in the industry. So really approaching 30 years. I just kind of answered that too. I think there's no better profession in the world for the right people. So it's an incredible calling. And for the right people, it can be an incredibly fulfilling profession and industry. It's not easy. But like many wonderful things in life, it's worth it.
I'm unable to pin this one. I don't know why, but it's Kylie. Do you wear a respirator while embalming? Why or why not?
Yep, I do. We also have incredible ventilation in the embalming lab, which helps greatly. But we wear a respirator mask as well because of the fumes. Formaldehyde's very caustic fumes. So,
aqueous cremation. Thoughts, opinions?
Yeah, aquamation is. I'm still trying to wrap myself around it. And compared to fire cremation, the remains break down in a solution, hydrolysis solution that's heated up. And then the remains, rather than returning to the air, break down in that's become part of that solution. So what's ultimately left is skeletal remains. That solution then, with the tissue that's broken down, gets flushed down the drain. That's where I'm having trouble. I don't know why, because, all waste is flushed down, becomes part of the water ecosystem, water treatment centers, goes through it. But I just have a hard time with that. That's why I like terramation, because everything comes back to the family. Nothing goes down the drain, I guess. So.
Holly, do bodies relax when they pass, like if they are contracted? Wondering how y'all put them on a stretcher.
Yeah. So you're probably referring to rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is natural, and everybody that dies will generally go through rigor mortis, which is a chemical reaction of the tissue, which is going to stiffen. Guess what? It actually will go away on its own too. So eventually it goes away and the tissues become fluid again and they can easily be moved. Or if we get the remains into our care and we need to break that, what we call break rigor, it's not breaking bones, it's just relaxing that, kind of massaging that out of the tissue. That will relax it as well. So we can easily remove rigor mortis if needed, or it'll go away on its own. So.
Trying to pin this next one, but it won't let me. So I'm going to read Erica DeVoe. Is it true you can tell what a person did for a living, like a hairdresser, or is that a tale?
Yeah, I've never experienced, I've heard that hairdressers will have, hair in their eyelids or in their lungs or something like that. And I guess it makes sense because if you're, snipping that hair and little pieces going all over the place and it flies into the, but I've never been able to experience that. I've never seen that. So
Jennifer said, my dad passed away, but we didn't find him for days. Can you tell how many days someone passed away?
well, they've gotten pretty good at being able to do that, at least estimate it. But it's such a variable, Jennifer, and I'm so sorry for your loss because it's going to depend on the temperature of where he was, condition, where he was inside, outside, or maybe in water or something like that. So it can, they can get pretty close. It may not be exact, but generally they can estimate, the date of death, based on the stage of decomposition.
Robin said someone cremated and they wanted to have their ashes scattered in the ocean. What are regulations?
So it's going to depend on the state. In my state, we have to be 500 yards off the coast, which is 1,500 feet. That requires a boat to be scattered. And we do that, all the time. So, and I think most states are going to be similar, to that. So coastal states. We can't scatter in inland bodies of water, so no lakes or rivers, not legally anyway.
Rachel Rogers, 1024, whose hubby wants to become a mortician. He's currently a pharmacist.
Yeah, and I think that would be, he's already got the science down. He's also, most pharmacists I know have a level of care like healthcare workers, so that should translate nicely into the profession as well.
Nay says, what does cancer look like in the body? What could you compare it to?
Well, we don't do autopsies, so we generally never open anyone up. What I will tell you, so the only cancers that we really experience, we see the results of cancer and the results of different type of cancer, renal form of cancer, something like that, or liver cancer can cause somebody to be jaundice, different levels of emaciation because of different cancers. Sometimes we see signs of cancer on the outside of the body, tumors on the outside of the body, or if they were excised or removed or something like that. But we generally aren't involved in the autopsy, so we generally don't see the interior results of cancer.
Carly said, my grandma passed on my 11th birthday. I touched her hand and it was extremely hard. Why?
Welcome in, Kim Sings. Glad to have you here. And it was extremely hard. That's because of
it scared her.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's an uncomfortable feeling because soft tissue is no longer there. And it's generally because of the embalming. Embalming is a drying process. So it's going to preserve by drying the tissue. And that's going to firm the tissue, the muscle, the skin up. So it's going to feel, not only is it going to feel harder, but it's going to feel much colder because that person is at room temperature as compared to almost 100 degrees, normal.
S. Robert says, if a relative dies in one state but will be buried in another state, can we transport the body?
Yeah. So funeral homes can help you with that. You may even be able to transport it yourself, but you're going to have to follow the state regulations and requirements, and you're going to have a transit permit to make sure that you have a transit permit to go out of the state. So I'm trying to see where our goal was here. Why did it disappear on me? Go ahead, honey.
Luella says, my nephew's wife passed Wednesday. I've never been married. How do I support him?
My nephew's wife passed Wednesday. I've never been married. How do I support it? Oh, as not maybe understanding. A spouse's love is a chosen love, and it's one of the greatest types of love. And to grieve that is even more difficult. And the outpouring of love, especially if she was ill for a while, and him being a caregiver, which might be the situation, all of that just instantly stops. So I think you can't take that away, and much of he's just going to have to go through, and allowing plenty of time, plenty of grace to do that on his own. But I think maybe just giving him opportunities to connect with you or other people, or maybe say, hey, I'm going to go to the store. I'm wondering if you want to just go along with me so you don't have to drive. Provide little things, opportunities like that, just to kind of get him out and kind of re-engage. So, excuse me for a moment. Okay.
Kim says, my mom's ashes were in a small box. I expected more, I think, but it's kind of heavy.
Yeah, it's generally about 7 to 10 pounds and the size of kind of a child's shoebox, about 200 cubic inches. So, but people are often surprised at how much they weigh, but that's the entire skeletal remains that have been processed down.
Is it weird to have some ashes in an urn and the rest buried in a special place?
No, not at all. Many people split, the cremated remains up and they want to do different things with them. And I think that's another one of the advantages, to cremation in general is you can have the opportunity to do that. So,
Is embalming necessary if the body is going to be cremated?
no, absolutely not. Embalming is not necessary or required, and that remains can be cared for under refrigeration. So,
The mortician asked me if I wanted my mom's false teeth.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever asked somebody if they wanted their false teeth back, but yeah, I would be a strange thing. Maybe I should ask, but and not assume. But I've always just left them with the deceased. So if the family has a preference like that, they generally are going to tell us. So
Phyllis says, when my husband died and after the embalming, his head swelled as big as a basketball. Why?
um, it could have been because of embalming is a pressurized process, so it's a pressurized machine, and sometimes if there was a situation, I don't know what he passed away from, but if he had a cardiac event or something like that, vasodilators, sometimes that the pressure of the embalming can actually cause swelling. And I'm wondering, and the reason I'm connecting it to the cause of death is sometimes, the arteries, vessels are more open than they normally would be. And the embalmer may be surprised by that because there's not as enough tension, coming back when they're arterially embalming. And that can cause swelling, in that area. I don't know if the other reason was maybe he was retaining water prior to death. And sometimes that can be amplified by the embalming procedure as well. So.
What is the strangest thing that you've encountered?
Oh, strangest. I never call anything strange. I've had some unique, experiences, with people, some beautiful services that were kind of outside, the box. I've taken caskets out on, the golf course, the 18th hole of a golf course, because that was, more appropriate than taking the husband and father to a church. And that was his sanctuary, for many years. And we had the service, there. I've taken caskets out on sailboats and had services there. Of course, cremated remains on sailboats is much easier, but I've actually taken a casket out. Full body burial at sea. We've had several, requests, to do that, where the holes have to be drilled in the casket and there has to be so much weight in the casket and so far off the coast, for that, which is always unique, but is possible for people to do. So yeah, many, many unique, things, and then experiences that I share in my Porch Talk. I don't know if you follow me yet, but please do if you don't. And then go to my Porch Talk series, my playlist. And many of those are explained in the stories. And most importantly, the lessons I've learned from those situations are there as well. So
Do you have a new goal of gingerbread men?
I thought we'd get a little festive and see if we've got some, or do you see some coming in?
No, I do not. But I see
Okay.
you've got a goal for
Well,
500.
if we don't get any gingerbread, as soon as we're done here, I expect you to bake
Whip
some.
one up.
Yeah, some
Oh, look,
gingerbread.
they're Kim, Serena. They've got you covered.
Well, I see they've got you covered. They've got
so
you
I don't have
covered.
to bake them.
I
John
thought
Hale has a
our
question.
daughter might even make some chocolate chip cookies tonight, but
She's not feeling well.
she's not
got
feeling
what
well
you
either.
have.
I know.
Someone
We're
did
kind
ask.
of passing it around. Yeah.
John Hale says, I lost my mother back in February of this year and then lost my wife when September was this year.
Oh my gosh. And that's compounded grief at its worst. And I am so sorry, John. I lost my mother back in February of this year and then lost my wife's.
I think there's a few typos possibly.
Can you read that again for me?
And then I lost my mother back in February of this year, and then lost my wife's Ben September was this year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I am so sorry. Please allow yourself plenty of grace as you navigate those, because it's easy to kind of lump when we have compounded grief like that and so close, together. And we kind of think, oh, I'm grieving, two deaths. Well, no, you're grieving, um, well, you are grieving two deaths, but you can't put them together and think that that walk is going to be the same, John. And make sure that you have the realization and allow yourself the time that those are going to be completely different walks, as you carry those their memory, and you carry that grief forward with you in the rest of your life. So,
I think you may have missed our friend Duck just joined.
oh, hi Duck, welcome so much. And there's my brother.
Oh, we got Scott. Scott on the porch.
Scott's on the porch.
WTF Radio. What steps do I need to take for my wife's ashes from America to Scotland?
So Scotland, I can actually easily answer this because we just had, we specialize in shipping remains, both casketed and cremated remains all over the world. And Scotland is fairly simple. The death certificate, transit permit, and cremation certificate, just a letter saying when this cremation took place, is going to those are going to have to be notarized. Death certificate's already certified. And then apostilled, which internationalizes, and that's done at the Secretary of State. You can do it yourself, or you can have the funeral home do it. They should be able to do it for you. And then you'll be easily be able to carry those on an airplane then with those documentation for Scotland.
What's up with the lights at funerals? Like, why can there be only certain lights and not full bright lights?
Well, yeah. We have an old saying sometimes when we have a difficult situation, when we have a deceased, that the coloring just isn't exactly what we want. We're dealing with some trauma. We're dealing with postmortem discoloration. And the saying goes this: turn down the lights and turn up the music. And I don't mean that jokingly. It's just that we have to adjust the lights to make it more of a comfortable experience, for the family, and take their focus, on something else. Ultimately, the remains of the deceased is just one part of what we are trying, one part of the experience we're trying to create for people. And ultimately, we want them to be able to leave not only the funeral, but the whole care that they're under when they're with us, feeling a little bit better. And so we have lighting. I compare it sometimes to similar to theatrical lighting, that can add color or diminish, lighting or something like that. And sometimes it just, or brighten. Sometimes it needs to be brightened as well. So it's not always the case that it should be dimmer. It should still be a place that people are comfortable in and have, some lights. So I just want to take a moment to thank our top gifters today. Once again, these numbers, the only thing that is important to us is the awareness that it creates in pushing the content out. And that ultimately helps build our community, which we're trying to do. And thanks so much for the gingerbread men or women. I don't know if they're men or women, gingerbread folk, but we appreciate them. But Misty, Jamie Lynn, thanks so much for gifting. Serena, Kim, Susie, you're always incredibly supportive, as well as Renee, who's both of them are also moderators, which they do so much more. Never expect anything else from them. So we greatly appreciate Holo Design, Tammy, Reagan, Jamie Thompson, Parker, Robin, Natalie, Margaret, Anne, who's another one of our super fans, as well as many of these others are Stacy, Greta, Mimi. She's a subscriber, Stacy, Noddle Knock, Mike, Kayla, Sharon, Miss Sky, Danica Wan, Patty, Nay, the Undertaker wife even supported a little bit tonight. Thank you so much. Sasha Sue, Kim, Bob Lucas, and so many more. All of you, thank you so much for first of all, for just showing up on the porch, off the porch right now. 'Tis the season. but commenting, asking the questions, sharing the live out, gifting, tapping. We're just so incredibly grateful. We're grateful that you would give any of your Sunday evening and just spend a little bit of time with us, getting questions answered, sharing about your experience. Many of you come in the virtual door with a recent loss, um, and we are honored by that. We hurt for you as well, that you're going through it. But we're honored that you ended up, landing here just for a little bit. And if you get any ounce of comfort from this, we've succeeded as well. So thank you. Thank you so much. So it's almost 7:00. I don't know how much my voice is going to last, but let's do a few more questions and then we'll start to wrap it up for this evening. I want a couple of things. I did post, I've got a new series called Porch Talk Kids, which is specific to answering kid questions. I get a lot of requests about, how to explain grief and different aspects of the dying process to kids. And not all my answers may be completely right, but just based on my experience and education, I've been grateful to receive the answers that, I not only give my own kids, but when people that we're caring for, ask me. So a lot of that comes from them, but specifically to the kids. So those are videos meant to be watched with parents, for kids to be able to get an understanding and then ask additional questions. There's two versions of that. There's a TikTok, which is kind of a shorter version. And then we have a YouTube channel called Eric the Undertaker, which is incredibly coincidental, I guess. But which, if you don't follow us on YouTube, we'd greatly appreciate that as well. But there's not only the short version there is going to be there, but there's an extended version, which is generally twice as long. We go a little bit more in detail for, especially older kids, that they can handle a little bit more. And that's one of the things we're doing differently on our YouTube, channel. So please follow along there. Sometimes it's easier for that to share. Not everybody has TikTok that you can share our content with. So you can do that. We're also on Instagram at Eric the Undertaker as well. So
I had a comment pinned for Kim, but I just found another comment from Kim I'm going to pin first. She says, sorry, my son lost his best friend the same day, 10 hours after we lost my mom, his grandma.
oh my gosh. So sorry, my son lost his best friend the same day, 10 hours after we lost my grandmother. Yeah. And that's, I'm going to assume that your son was relatively young, if not very young, when that happened, Kim, and to navigate that not only as a young person, but then as a family to support him is incredibly difficult. I don't know how long ago this happened or if it was recent, but you're in our prayers nonetheless, because even if it was years ago, it's still a grief journey that continues on forever and changes us forever. And both of those were incredibly significant. Grandmothers, are incredibly special people. And we reach an age where the expectation of them to die, does increase. But a best friend at a young age, that just never is supposed to happen, right? And for him to be able to navigate that.
Said he's 24.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know exactly what it's like to lose somebody at that age. So, and that's, so incredibly young. So
she had also asked a question.
Yeah.
What happens with the organs when cremated?
So Kim, they are always kept, with the person. Even if they were autopsied and tissue samples were taken, they're returned with the deceased, and then they are cremated, with the deceased, and becomes part of that. The organs are generally consumed during the process completely, either returned to the air. So much water is made up. They're made up so much water. Ultimately, the only thing that remains after the cremation is the skeletal remains. So,
did you ever prepare a body for burial in the Islamic tradition?
yeah, Muslims. It's a beautiful ritual, and the community is very active. Sometimes the family is very active. Come in and do a washing, and then shrouding of the body. And they generally, they are a tradition that do not want embalming. They want it to be natural, and then as natural possible of a burial as well. Their preference is that they go directly into the ground in a shroud only, but some cemeteries require at least some sort of casket, and then it's a very basic, kind of biodegradable casket.
When my neighbor passed, his wife was distraught. They shaved his mustache. He always had. Why?
Yeah, that's a mistake. And one of the questions when we meet with a family is, is there facial hair and what's the instructions? The family is going to dictate those instructions on what they want to do. And we never just assume, because that can be a mistake. We can't reverse, right? I've had to recreate hair before, but it's not going to look exactly the same. It's much easier just for, Sharon, thanks so much for following on Instagram. If you were on here and jumped over there to do that. So that unfortunately was a mistake, and they should have asked about it, and some form of disconnect, happened, during that. So
Do Muslims ever request to be cremated?
rarely. I mean, definitely not what I refer to as Orthodox Muslims. I've had a handful, but they were kind of Muslim more by tradition. Um, and I've also told a story that I had a gentleman that had lived here for many, well, it's kind of a long story, so I'm not going to get into it. But there's countries, it's such a strict it's prohibited so strictly in the Muslim faith that there's countries, of course, in the Middle East that are in the government is Muslim, and it's very religious based. And if somebody's cremated, they will be, I mean, they will even, any assets they had, property they had, or anything will be taken by the government. They are not considered, that family's not considered to be a person, anymore, unfortunately. And that can be very detrimental for a family.
Ms. Sky says, how is the cremation chamber cleaned between each cremation? Any possibility for cross-contamination?
Yeah, very little possibility. And it's a wire brush. And remember, when the cremation's done, what's left over is skeletal remains, and recognizable skeletal remains, Miss Sky. So very large pieces of bone that are very easily swept out. There's no, paper thin, swifty kind of ashes like from a fireplace or from, a fire pit or something like that. That's just not what it is. It's skeletal remains. So they're very easily removed and completely removed before the next cremation. Well, we've got 350 of our gingerbread people. We're so close to 500. And what's our likes at? 155,000 likes. So I think we'll go a little bit longer. Sharon's dropping some gingerbread. Greatly. Thank you so much, Sharon. And I see many of you have switched, or you're multitasking and have followed us both on YouTube and on Instagram. I did post the latest kids porch talk just today about, what is a funeral? Why do we go to funerals for kids? The longer version on YouTube, because it does say for the extended version, go to YouTube. I won't get up until after we're done with the live. So, because it was like hot off the press, off the.
It delayed us a little bit getting on here.
Yeah, delayed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to get that one up. And then, so if you want to go to the extended version, it'll be up by tomorrow morning, but I'll get it up as soon as we finish here before we watch our Christmas movie tonight.
Jamie, when asked to see my dad, they said I wouldn't want to see him. Is this because they were, the other thing I said was preparing him to be embalmed? No, I can't find the other part. Yeah, going to embalm him.
Erica's back in the room. Thanks. Hey, Erica. Possibly they may have wanted to get the embalming. The sooner that we can do the embalming procedure, the better results that we will have, Jamie. So they may have just said, let's get that done first. It sounds like you were ultimately able to see him, which is important. So then, but they may have just wanted to get that done since you were going to see him after that. The only other reason would be, if they were not recommending viewing because of, advanced stages of decomposition or something, but doesn't seem like that was the case.
Rockland says, did not realize the bones didn't burn in cremation. What do you do with the skeleton?
So that's the only thing that remains after. And if we didn't do anything, the container would be, in some countries, they don't process down the remains, the skeletal remains, and they call them bone boxes, and they keep them whole. Here in the United States, most Western countries, and throughout Europe, they process it down. They're pulverized down to a consistency somewhere between sand and crushed seashells.
And along those lines, what happens to the skull after cremation since it's such a big part of skeletal remains?
Yep, it's still there. It often breaks apart during the cremation process because the bone does become very brittle. So, and is, easily, broken. Even sweeping down, parts will kind of break apart and stuff because it comes very, very dry and brittle. But the skull, is still there, and teeth are part of the skeletal remains as well.
Were you live on YouTube tonight or no?
I was not.
Oh,
No,
okay.
why?
You were just looking to see who was following you.
Yeah, did somebody ask about that?
Yeah, they said you weren't live.
No, I wasn't live. I didn't go live on YouTube tonight. That takes, currently with our setup, it takes another camera for me to do. And since I was just trying to get back in the saddle again after being sick, I was kind of like, I think we'll just stick to our TikTok family tonight. So,
why do the bodies look like they are still breathing in the casket?
I think, Dana, that is kind of an optical illusion. I think because if you're looking at somebody that's in a casket laying down for so long, and let's face it, every other time you've looked at them, they were breathing. And so I think it's not necessarily your mind playing tricks, but it's just your mind. It's your memory of the person kind of merging with the reality of what you're looking at. And in the memory, of course, they would be breathing. So, but there was a device at one point many years ago in one of the trade rags, which is what we call the, mortuary, publications, newspapers and magazines and that type of thing. There was a device that they started to market that you would put in underneath somebody's clothing that would actually make them look like they were breathing. And I thought that was the oddest thing. Because part of what we're trying to do is help people with the realization that this person's died. So why would we want to trick any emotion or brain into thinking that they're alive? It just hit me very incorrectly. And especially as a Christian where, I have full faith, in the promise that I get as a Christian that, what is important. My spirit is long gone and in the presence of God by then. Why would I want to try to misrepresent that what remains, which is an important, earthly vessel and tells the story of somebody, but what remains is completely inanimate. So,
how long does it usually take to become licensed to do what you do?
So, depending on the state, most states are going to require the equivalent of an associate's or bachelor's degree prior to mortuary science college. And then that's generally a 2 to 3 year program and then a 1 to 2 year internship after that. And then I always add, if somebody asks me, take 6 months to a year of discernment and work for a funeral home part-time or full-time prior to making, the decision to go to mortuary science college, just to make sure it's a good fit for you. So.
Do you own a funeral home? Do you carry unpaid balances? What is the percentage?
We do own funeral homes. Our policy is generally payment prior to the service or at the time of our arrangements, because it's a very difficult thing to try to collect after. And listen, one of my least favorite parts of what I do is asking to be paid. You sit down with you're there to care for them. My heart truly is wanting to just help these people, but we're also a business. So we also have to be paid for it, similar to any, healthcare or anything else, that they have to still be professionally paid for, so they can stay in business. We can be there for other families or maybe even the same family in years to come. We rarely carry balances. Sometimes there's special situations. And I'll tell you, they're so special and they're so extreme that we really go into it just not expecting ever to get paid. Sometimes we're surprised and sometimes we don't. We don't want to set ourselves up for disappointment though when that's offered, but it's not it's not common. So look at all the Steph. Thanks so much for the gingerbread. Stacy Charger, thanks so much for the gingerbread. Marlene's in the room. Thanks so much.
Jennifer was curious if it's legal to keep a bone or bones. And Biko also asked, are we allowed to have bone boxes in the U.S.?
Yeah, good question. I don't think there's anything illegal about it. I don't think there's anything illegal about it. And I have had families request that like one bone not be processed down and they wanted that whole. But I'm going to have to check that for sure tomorrow. I'll have to check the regulations, but I don't think that there would be anything illegal about it. But I would have to check and see.
Kathy wants to know, what is the temperature when cremated?
It's between 14 and 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. So.
Fat Kid the Boss, when I was 3, my mom lost her best friend. I vividly remember her coming and telling me bye. Dream?
Yeah. When I was 3, my mom lost her best friend. I vividly coming her and tell, yeah. I don't know. That's just one of those mysteries that, maybe we'll get answered when we face death ourselves. I don't know what, the participation of a deceased, what the spirit, what happens immediately following. My faith teaches me that they would go straight into the arms of Jesus and there would really be no need to interact with anyone. But then, our God's a very loving God. And maybe if somebody can get, hope and peace and strength from some sort of interaction with that spirit afterwards, then maybe it is facilitated. I don't know for sure. That's just one of the mysteries, even though I deal with death on a daily basis. Thanks so much for the heart flowers.
Flowery Curl asks, are the loved ones' remains after cremation in the fire alone, or is it mixed with others?
Just one person at a time, as regulated as moral ethics. And really, there's room for one person at a time. I think that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long will a body in a casket stay intact before decomposing?
It's going to depend, Rocat. So depending on the situation, if they were embalmed, did you ask if they were embalmed? No. If they were embalmed, if they were not embalmed, what type of environment they were buried in? Were they in an above ground crypt or something like that? If they're embalmed, months to years before nature takes over. Nature does always win. If they're not embalmed, it could be weeks to months before they go down to skeletal remains.
Okay, this next one is in like 3 parts, and I'm going to read it before I pin. Misfit Jamie Lynn. I was with my best friend's mom when she passed. I had got up early that morning. She was on a breathing machine. I looked at her and she looked like she was asleep. So I went and laid back down. My best friend came in and she had passed. Could she have been gone when I looked at her?
Remind me, babe, what did she say prior to that? The middle part? Did she notice anything?
No, let's see. She was on a breathing machine. She looked at her and she looked like she was asleep. So she went and laid back down.
Yeah. I don't know. She, if she looked like she was asleep, she may have already, been gone. I don't think there should be any feeling of regret or guilt, because it wouldn't have changed the ultimate outcome. So the timing, was at God's hand and not of anybody else's. And there's no reason to question that, and just to find, peace that she was at peace.
Are you afraid of dying? I have death anxiety.
No, I'm not afraid of dying. And Renee, first and foremost, because of my faith, and I was blessed to enter my profession with my faith. So my faith gives me the promise of salvation and eternal life. So, but setting that aside for just a moment, professionally, because I deal with death on a daily basis, and I'm reminded every moment of almost every day that there's no guarantee for tomorrow. There's no guarantee that I'm going to make it upstairs to my bed tonight. or my beautiful wife is going to wake up next to me tomorrow. There's no guarantee, and I'm reminded of that on a daily basis. So here's what it has forced me to do. I choose to be incredibly grateful for every single moment that I'm given, because every moment is a gift. Every person that we're given and every moment we get to share with them is a gift. And if you focus on being grateful for that and everything that you've already been given, and not worry about what you're going to get or not get, then any fear or anxiety you have of death starts to just completely diminish. There's no sense in putting a lot of energy in fearing death. It's going to happen. I mean, there's almost 900 people right here in the room listening to me. All of you are going to die. We all are. None of us are going to get out of this without experiencing that. So putting a bunch of energy into fearing that, the time, the place, the how, really isn't going to make our life any better. But if you instead focus on being grateful for everything we have, and then if you want to look in the future, just focus on kind of weaving joy in between every single moment and every single person that you're blessed to have, anxiety of death will go away. I truly promise you, and I believe this. And even as a dad that's personally had a huge personal loss of my own, setting aside professional, the biggest realization of my own grief journey was not what I lost, but when I woke up one day and realized everything that I got may not have been as long as what I wanted, but all the gifts, all the influence, all the love that I got because of the gift of my son before he went to heaven, I will forever be grateful for. And so, no, it doesn't cause any fear of my own death, or really fear of anybody else in my own life. I just choose to be grateful for every single moment, every single person that's in them. Choose Joy-san. Hey, welcome.
Eric, do you believe in mediums?
Oh, I see your green heart, Scott. I don't know. I believe that the only being that can predict anything about the only person that knows anything about the future is my God in heaven. And for that ability to be given to somebody here, I'm not going to question it, but I'm not going to choose to put faith in that, because my faith lies in something very, very different. So if people, put belief in that and somehow they get direction or comfort, I'm not going to judge them. But for me and mine, that's not where our faith is going to lie. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Lynn says, I don't want a viewing. Cremation right away. Is this unusual?
No, it's very usual. Majority of our cremations are generally that, what we call direct, dignified cremation. But there's still, what I have seen in the increase in cremation is the amount of people that want a traditional service or viewing prior. And many people don't even realize that that's a possibility, but it certainly is. And but there's also nothing wrong with simple, direct, dignified cremation and then celebrating, the life, in another way. We got all our gingerbread people, right?
You sure did.
Yeah. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so very much. Let's do like two more, and then I think we should wind down. I want to get that other video up on YouTube, and we've got a Christmas movie to watch. And
this next one is Suburbi 11 ENE. It won't let me pin, so I'm going to read it. Can an autopsy be performed after someone body was embalmed and buried?
Yeah, it is possible. It may diminish the results, but it's not uncommon for, remains, especially for investigative purposes, to be disinterred and an autopsy done if they were embalmed or not embalmed. And they still can get, some of the results that they are looking for.
Carmela says, flew to Japan to attend my aunt's funeral. At the parlor, they showed us them applying her makeup. In a question.
Oh, interesting. They made that part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one to judge, but it's not something that's common here. Now, excuse me just a second. I've never used the mute button so much.
I think it's picking it up on my mic, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're still hearing the cough over there. So I should mute both.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. So Carmela is saying it to me, it was pretty traumatic and I wasn't expecting it. Yeah, I think I would understand why what I was going to say is there's sometimes families want to be involved in that. They want to come in and maybe help with some makeup or hair. And that's perfectly fine and sometimes very beneficial to the family. But to have that forced upon you, yeah, I don't see how that I don't feel like that would be appropriate. Choose Joy just sent a couple of cats. Those are obviously for you, dear.
Thanks, Joy.
Yeah.
Or Choose Joy. FC, I just want you to know, I know we've thrown some hard questions at you. Tough question, good answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Well, it's that time of the evening. Oh, did you have one more, honey?
I pinned another one.
All right, babe,
I've
go
got
for
them
it.
in the queue.
That's all right. I'm only, getting over the worst sickness.
The worst. Jewel toned. How would you describe grief? What's the best thing that you can tell someone when their loved one dies?
Okay. Well, I describe grief in many different ways. And much of my porch talks is exactly about this. But what I want people to realize, a couple of things I want people to realize about grief, is that it's not something that you're going to pick up and carry for a while and then drop off and be able to walk away from. Grief is going to be with you forever. It's not a death sentence. It's actually meant to change you forever and change you for the good if you allow it to. Because as difficult as it is, grief is eventually going to make you stronger and provide a newfound peace within you and build a whole new relationship of the person that you've lost. You see, love never goes away. Love just changes shape. And that's exactly what the evolution of grief is realizing that we can still love somebody even though they're not next to us. It's just going to be different. Grief really is one of the greatest gifts I think God ever gave to us for us here on earth, the survivors, because it allows the story of the person that we lost and that we miss to continue living through us. The influence that they had on us, the love that they shared with us, all the gifts of the days and experiences that we got to experience with them is now part of you. And that's how I explain grief. All right. On that, I think we will say good night. And as we play our good night song, our special Christmas version of that, if you could please drop in to the comment where you're saying goodbye from. We'll let you know when we're going to be live again. I don't know if it'll be Monday or Tuesday, just depending on the schedule. We want to do the Christmas version here. Here we go.
Roxy61 says you should be a minister.
Well, I get to minister in many ways. I'm blessed to be able to do that, but I love what I do. But thank you. We're so incredibly grateful for all of you. Look at all of those checking in, saying goodnight from Texas, Michigan, Illinois, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Milwaukee. Susie, thanks so much for helping. Renee, Carol, East Tennessee. Good night from Norway.
So till next time on the porch.
Thank you for the porch lights.
Where the laughter and
Good night, Ashley. Linda from Martinez,
may your heart
Texas and Alabama,
your
Colorado.
We'll see you soon back here on the porch.
We'll see you all soon. Please get some rest tonight. We wish you an incredibly blessed and successful beginning of the new week as we approach this incredible season of Advent and Christmas, and this the newfound love that we all experience during this season. Good night, all. In Scotland.
The night's grown quiet. The stories are through.
Thank you, Sam. Take care.
This little porch still waits for you. The coffee's gone
Thank you, Jamie.
cold. The stars are bright. We'll keep that swing rocking through the night.
I'm already feeling better. So. Good night, all. We're incredibly grateful for all of you. Have a good night.
Your troubles run short. We'll see you soon back here on the porch.